I bet you can't wait to go camping this year.
Well, good luck, guys, because America's pretty much sold out already.
So in this video, we're going to share 10 tips to book a hard-to-find campsite, including a new software that will search every 5 minutes, refreshing in the hard-to-book park.
It's going to blow your mind, guys.
Let's start by setting off the stage of what RVing and camping is really going to look like in 2021. Here are a couple of our predictions.
Yeah, so lots of different blogs and articles have been posted already about 2021, an influx of thousands and thousands of new RVers and not enough campgrounds. So campgrounds are not adding enough new sites to keep up with the number of campers that are coming in for 2021.
In fact, one RV travel article estimates that there's going to be about 1 million new RVers on the road, but only 40,000 campsites. Obviously, we have a problem here.
Yeah, it's going to be a big problem.
And to make matters worse, fuel prices are going up.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough year because a lot of people in America, they want to stay local. They want to use an RV. This video is going to help everybody that RVs, the part-timers, the weekend warriors, the full-timers, everybody. And Mercedes and I are going to share with you the apps that we use, all the memberships that we have, and some must-have things that you got to have with you if you want to compete for campgrounds for 2021.
Because the days of just going with the flow and just camping wherever you end up landing that night, they're gone. And the reality is you need all the tools in your tool belt. So here are our 10 best tools for finding a campsite in 2021. Make sure you grab a notebook and also make sure you're subscribed to our newsletter because we're going to be sending out all this detailed information there. And we'll also have all of the links in the description as well.
And please like this video, give it a thumbs up.
So the first tip sounds pretty obvious, right? It's just book as much as you can now. Like right now, your summer should already be booked. And I know that this is hard because what if things change? And guess what? They probably will.
They're going to change.
But do your best guess and start reserving those campsites now because the sooner you book, the better chance you're going to have to get the places you really want to stay at.
And you guys know there's dozens of different campground memberships, but one of the options that you have with a big time membership is that you get longer periods of time to advance book. 2 months, 3 months, 6 months on some memberships. So use that. You pay good money for these memberships. Anybody who has a membership right now should be booked out for the next 3 or 6 months, depending on how much time you have on your membership.
All right, so tip number 2 is have a plan A and a plan B. So you might need to book a park that's a little bit further away, but make sure that you have a plan A and a plan B contingency. So that way, if you can't get your plan A, if there's no cancellations, at least you have your plan B to fall back on. But if things change, you could always reserve your first choice.
Now, if your plan A does work out and your backup goes down and you book that site, please do us all a favor. Don't be selfish. Call and cancel those reservations. The other really good point here, guys, is with state, local, national campgrounds, the cancellation policies, they're different everywhere. Yeah. Every state is a little bit different. Nothing drives us more crazy than when you see that a state or a national campground is sold out, but then you get into the park and you see all these sites open. Those are because people didn't show up for their appointment, right? They didn't show up for their campsite. And unfortunately, the booking systems need a lot of improvement in 2021.
Yeah, because you might have to pay like a small cancellation fee if your first choice becomes available. And I think that's pretty fair because you were given that insurance of knowing no matter what, you had a place to park. The third tip is to just hit that refresh button 24/7. I'm telling you, when you're in that system looking for that campsite, just keep refreshing because there are going to be cancellations. Things happen. Sometimes something breaks down. Sometimes there's an illness. Plans change. Don't quit trying just because when you did your research the first time, you couldn't book your plan A. And what if we told you that there was a service that would actually keep refreshing every 5 minutes for you so that if there is a last minute cancellation, you'll be the first to know.
Yeah, and Mercedes and I experienced this, but we couldn't get the whole 2 weeks. And so we sat there for hours. We had booked 4 days. We sat there for hours to hit refresh. And you can do this for weeks with no luck. We are actually pretty happy that we had a small company reach out to us, and we're debuting their new software that will basically check campgrounds all over North America. It'll send you a notification so that you're the first to know when there's a cancellation.
Tip number 4 is to get creative and look for cities around your ideal location. So for example, Sedona, everybody wants to camp in Sedona, right? Well, honestly, Cottonwood, those places,
Clarkdale.
those places around Sedona are pretty awesome. In fact, we've actually found that we enjoy surrounding areas more because they tend to be less densely populated and there tends to be less of that crazy tourism feel
Crazy
to it.
traffic. For us, we'd rather actually stay a half hour to 45 minutes outside of these high traffic touristy areas, these beautiful campgrounds around that area. And let's be honest, you're probably going to only go in there for 1 or 2 days and visit, right? So the less traffic are on the outskirts of these major attractions and outside the city.
Tip number 5 is consider a long-term site. And here's what we mean. A lot of parks have a certain number of spaces that are designated to long-term, maybe quarterly, seasonal, or annual spots, right? Well, even if you're a weekend warrior, having a seasonal spot could be a really good idea because you could just leave the RV there and then just return to the same spot on the weekends. So get creative and consider those long-term spots. And if you're a full-time RVer, those long-term spots can actually give you a little bit of a respite because every now and then we need a little bit of a break in the travel.
Yeah, and one thing that a lot of Thousand Trails members don't know is that you will get 20% off all long-term stays at all Encore parks.
If you're a member.
Yeah, and so the longer you stay at a park, the better rate they're going to give you. Yeah, and this is also really important around holiday weekends,
Yes.
4th of July, Memorial Day. Guys, remember, with campgrounds, they're always pretty much sold out on the weekends.
Well, and that brings us to our next point, which is consider taking your trips on the weekdays instead of the weekends, because the weekends always fill up first. And sometimes you'll have availability like here in the Keys. It's going to be really hard to get a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So maybe we need to get a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday instead. Try changing your schedule around a bit and you might open up a world of possibilities and so many more options just by being a little flexible on the days of the week. The next tip is to diversify your memberships. And here's what we mean. The days of just relying on one membership to find all your places to camp is not going to work anymore. So we're going to go pretty quickly into a bunch of different memberships, but don't worry, we have all the links and all the information below.
So one of the things we think that every single RVer should have, even if you go for 2 nights a year, is a Passport America membership.
It's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer, guys. They've got these parks all over the country. It's $49. Use it 2 nights and it pays for itself. Typically, we use our Passport Americas when we're traveling late. We're on the road. We just pick up the app. We'll go ahead and search for a local park. We'll see 50 miles out, 100 miles out. We'll call ahead and book it. Passport America, we think, is probably the best value available for RVers. Get a Passport America membership. It's a no-brainer, guys. And we actually did a whole video on Passport America, and we'll put it up in the corner of the video right now if you want to find out more details about Passport America.
The next membership we're going to talk about super briefly is Thousand Trails. Now, there are many different types of Thousand Trails memberships. The most basic and the most entry-level membership is the Zone Pass.
Right.
And even if you're a part-timer, I would say that if you RV more than 2 weeks out of the year, a Zone Pass is a really good tool to have in your tool belt. They do have other memberships that are better suited for full-time RVers, but at least the Zone membership, number one, it gives you an opportunity to really dig into that zone of the country. It's pretty affordable, but what I really like about the Zone membership is that if you're not convinced on a full upgraded Thousand Trails membership, the Zone Pass allows you to poke your toe into the waters and kind of test it out with relatively low risk. What's nice about the Zone Pass is that you're still eligible to get the Trails Collection add-on. So you only have the buy-in of like $400 or $500 and you're still eligible for this add-on that other people that spend thousands of dollars are also getting.
And we love Encore parks. They're some of our favorite parks in the equity lifestyle options.
Now, if you're a full-time RVer, you really want to look into the upgraded memberships.
If you're a full-time RVer and you want full hookups and a nice, clean, safe campground, Thousand Trails is a no-brainer. You just have to have it. If you use it over 250 days a year, you're going to cut your night cost down to under $10 per night.
And speaking of campground memberships that are really good for full-timers, Coast to Coast is actually a membership that we've ended up trying out and we've ended up actually liking it. We have found the best deal like on the planet to get into Coast to Coast through Kimberly at campground membership outlets. Now, here's what I like about Coast to Coast is that it fills in the gaps where maybe there are no Thousand Trails parks or I can't find a Passport America park. The other thing I like about Coast to Coast is that the price to join with the deal that we found is actually really reasonable. There is a nightly fee of $10 a night, but I think that because it's filling in the gaps, it's worth it. So it may not be my most favorite tool in the tool belt, but it's definitely one that has helped us when we're in a pinch and we can't find a place to stay. The other nice thing about Coast to Coast is if you are a Coast to Coast member, you can also buy into the RPI system.
Right.
And now, to be eligible for RPI, you either have to have an upgraded Thousand Trails membership or a Coast to Coast membership. The next tip that you need to have in your tool belt is you need to have multiple RV apps in your phone, and you need to download them before you go out driving and the internet gets sketchy. Now, some of the apps that we have, and to be really upfront with you guys, we're kind of cheap, so we don't do the upgraded versions. Don't judge us.
Yeah.
But RV Park Campendium are some. One that I really like is the Passport America app that tells us where those parks are nearby, so I can like save a little on camping because again, I'm cheap. But have a bunch of those apps. The Dirt is a new one that when we started, they reached out to us and they didn't have the park that we were staying at.
Right.
And then 8 months later, we were in a pinch and I had already downloaded their app, and their app found the place we went to that night. So these apps are constantly getting better as more and more people use them and input information.
Play with them, you know, even when you're not camping, play and you get used to how to use them. A lot of them have filters so you can filter out different things, find places to eat, disperse camping, full hookup camping, 30 amp, 50 amp, all of it. And so just have those apps on the phone. They're really a nice tool to use when you're on the road.
And actually, there's so many apps out there that what we've done is we've created an app page. So make sure you're signed up to our newsletter. We're going to email this out. And this is like a download of all the apps and kind of a rating of which ones we love the most, which ones we don't. If you guys want a separate video just on the apps, let us know. We didn't want to dive too deep into all the apps that are out there.
Right. We'll do a separate video on apps in the future. But at this point, we still have not used an app where we think it's worth upgrading $30 or $40 per year. If we find it, we'll let you know.
Because we're cheap. The next tip is don't be so dependent on RV parks in the first place. And this was a big mistake that we made our first year RVing. You see, we did have a fifth wheel and we did have 2 generators, but we were really dependent on having those hookups. And so as we RV'd more and more and we learned how to manage our water, how to make our water last longer, how to use less water when need be, we were able to not rely on those RV parks so much. And then when we explored with a Class C, we really got good at like not depending so much on RV parks. I tell you, that onboard generator is a game changer.
Yep.
Yeah, and this could look like, you know, a rest stop, a truck stop, a Walmart, or if you're really fancy, it could be like a Harvest Host, or it could be a Cracker Barrel. You could have some pancakes in the morning. But there's a lot of options that don't require necessarily an RV park. They're not long-term options, but when you're in a pinch, they'll do. The next tip, and we've kind of admittedly been teasing you guys with this for a little while now, is that hitting the refresh button 24/7, right? Well, what if there was a software service that will hit the refresh button for you and you'll get notified, you'll get a text on your phone as soon as there's a cancellation so you can immediately go in and grab that spot. This is especially great in those state and national parks because some of those book out like years and years in advance, right?
CampNab, right? It's CAMPNAB. These 2 developers, Eric and Eric, they're childhood friends. They grew up together. And one of them, after watching their girlfriend sit at a computer, they refreshed, and she refreshed for hours and hours, and she never get the spot. One of them joked, hey, let's build a software that will check for us, right? So what CampNab does is it allows you to build some criteria, pick a date, and the system itself will check for cancellations at that park, and as soon as there's availability or a cancellation at that park,
you'll get notified.
You get notified. Now, it's not a guarantee that you're going to get a site. That's not what they do.
But you get the first chance.
You get the first chance at it, so that when you get a notification, you immediately drop what you're doing, run to the phone, and book that notification. One of the things that blew our mind when we got to meet Eric and Eric was that 99% of the people who have used this use it again, which just says to us, it works. They renew their thing.
The better your search criteria, the more opportunities you get to be notified whenever there's a cancellation.
Now, just like everything else in the camping and RV space, right, this is not going to be for everybody. It can seem pricey, right? $10 to set up a search criteria. There's no guarantee that you're going to book this place. All they've done is build software that will check it constantly. But what we believe is for those families that want to book in Yosemite or the Grand Canyon or Sedona, right? This is going to give you an opportunity to pick some dates and let the system do the work for you. Hey, we're really, really excited for 2021. We do know that there's a huge influx of new RVers coming into the space, which we think is super, super cool.
Yeah.
We love RVers. We love the lifestyle. We're super excited to get back out there traveling again this year. So hopefully we've given you some great strategies and tips that are going to help you find a campground in 2021. We really do believe it's going to be a tough year for reservations. We think traveling is going to go up, cost of gas is going to go up. It's going to be an interesting year.
So now that you know how to make sure you nab those spots, haha, pun intended, in the next video, we're going to talk about what you absolutely need for your first RV trip. None of those like too many accessories and too many gadgets. We're going to talk about the bare bones, what you absolutely need to take with you on your very first RV trip. We'll see you in the next video.